Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I would say the rare Friday night top 25 matchup. Except here's the thing. We got a top 25 matchup last week on a Friday night, Kansas State hosting Arizona. That one turned into kind of a dud. Well, this week we get Illinois at Nebraska. Nebraska is an 8.5-point favorite. It was 9.5, so it's actually trickling down towards the Illinois spot. And then the over-under in this game is 43.5. All right, so fun top 25 matchup. We all know about Nebraska. Let's start with Illinois. I wonder how many, a lot of people probably didn't even know Illinois was actually even ranked coming into this one. Well, they are ranked, baby. They are 3-0, the big win over Kansas a few weeks ago. But what's interesting about Illinois, they're actually doing it a little bit different than I think a lot of people would expect. If you haven't watched Illinois, I don't blame you that, whatever. The Kansas game was on, but other than that, they've played, I believe, Eastern Illinois, Central Michigan early on in the season. But when you think Illinois, right, what do we all think? We think Brett Bielema, like big guy. All he wants to do is run the football, run it 60 times a game, 4 yards in a cloud, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, whatever. And then get out with a 14-3 win, go eat a big porterhouse, and go home and take and slumber, whatever. Like, I'm sorry, Brett Bielema, don't mean to stereotype you, my man, but that's kind of how we think of your teams. What's funny, though, is if you actually pay attention to this Illinois team, if you actually pay attention to them, they actually are kind of the exact opposite of kind of what you would expect them to be under Brett Bielema. So far this year, they have not run the football super effectively. They are a team that ranks 77th nationally in rushing offense. Now, I know it's early, but the counter to that is they've played Kansas, Central Michigan, and Eastern Illinois all at home, so you'd think they'd have success running the football. They have not, and instead it has actually been the pass game that has been effective for Illinois. Luke Altmaier, remember him? He was the star. He was the backup at Ole Miss with Matt Corral a million years ago. Well, he is at Illinois now, and he is completing about 69% of his passes. So really, it's actually been the pass game which has been more effective for Illinois so far. He's also thrown for 6 touchdowns and no interceptions. Beyond just the pass game, though, here's the thing you really need to know about Illinois. And Matt Rule talked about this in his Monday press conference. Illinois is doing something about as well as anybody in college football, and it is an important stat, okay? What is that important stat? It is that they are taking care of the football and taking the football away from you, okay? So this is a team that, as of right now, currently ranked number 2 nationally in turnover margin. 9 turnovers forced in 3 games. I'm not great at math, but that's 3 turnovers per game. And so listen, when you're taking the ball away 3 times, you don't have to be great in every other phase, but that is the key to Illinois' success. And Matt Rule said, they're kind of doing a lot of the same stuff that we are doing right now. In terms of Nebraska, listen, we've talked a lot about Nebraska on this show, but I think it's worth noting a couple things. First off, they're not only beating teams, they're actually beating teams very convincingly, okay? So I was thinking about this, is that Nebraska enters this game at 3-0. Here's the crazy part. They have beaten UTEP 40-7. They beat Colorado 28-10. They beat Northern Iowa 34-3. Producer Matt, do me a favor, pop up that tweet that I sent you earlier in the day. It's from my buddy Corby, who's a professional bettor. Because what's interesting about Nebraska is it's not just that they've won big. They've gotten out to big leads. So like I said, they beat UTEP 40-7. They beat Colorado 28-10. They beat Northern Iowa 34-3. Well, they were up 21-3 at half against Northern Iowa, 28-0 against Colorado, 30-7 against UTEP. And my buddy Corby, who is a professional bettor, he tweeted out on Monday morning, is Nebraska actually underrated? They're ranked 3rd in the country in first half points per game, okay? And then 107th in the country in fourth quarter points. And so if you actually have watched Nebraska, what they have done on everybody is jumped out early, completely controlled the game on both sides of the football early in games, and then kind of taken the air out of the ball late. Thank you, producer Matt, for that tweet. You can pop it down now. And when I think about Nebraska, the one thing that stands out to me, and we talked about this after the Colorado game, is we all are guilty of this. I include myself. You get excited when a school that doesn't historically recruit a certain type of player gets one. We did it with Nico when he went to Tennessee. Tennessee had not recruited the quarterback position well. And we did it, by the way, with Dylan Raiola, right? We get so excited about Dylan Raiola. But what did I say after the Colorado game? I said what impressed me most is not what he did. It's what he didn't do and what he didn't feel the need to do. Is that you'd think five-star quarterback, you'd think face of the program, you'd think probably a ton of NIL money, almost certainly a ton of NIL money. That when that team is on a big stage like against Colorado, he's going to want to chuck the ball all over the field. He's Patrick Mahomes, and he follows everything Patrick Mahomes does. And instead, it was the opposite. Handed the ball off, took care of the ball. And we mentioned Illinois and their ability to force turnovers. Well, I think the big story with Nebraska is the exact opposite. Nebraska fans, you don't need me to tell you this, but last year it was not pretty in terms of the turnover margin. Nebraska last year, this is such an insane stat. They were negative 17 in turnover margin, one of the worst turnover margins in college football, 31 total turnovers in 12 games. And so if you watch Nebraska last year, this was a team that if they could just take care of the football a little bit better, they were going to be much improved off that 5-win season. Well, guess what? They're taking care of the football. They've only turned it over, I believe, 2 times, but they are taking care of the football as well as anybody. And they are also playing, and they're controlling the lines of scrimmage on both sides. As I said, Illinois wants to control the line of scrimmage. They want to run the football. They want to take time off the clock. They want to force you into bad spots. Here's the problem. Nebraska has one of the best run defenses in the country. They are currently in the top 10 nationally. They're only giving up 92 yards per game on the ground. Now, I know you could argue they haven't played anybody, but it doesn't change the fact that to me, I don't really care about that because they've done what they need to do against literally everybody. By the way, if you want to say they haven't played anybody, go back and watch Nebraska trying to run the ball or watch Colorado trying to run the ball against Nebraska versus trying to run the ball against Colorado State last weekend. Criticize Colorado for whatever you want. Criticize Nebraska for whatever you want. But the bottom line is Colorado averaged like 6 yards per carry against Colorado State the other day. So maybe it wasn't just that Colorado can't run the football. Maybe Nebraska has something to do with it. And so when I look at this game, listen, I know the spread feels high, but to me, it really isn't, because when I look at this Nebraska team, they're not, unless they have a very uncharacteristic game at home, okay? Through 3 games, we're now a quarter of the way through the season. They have taken, is that right? Is that quarter of the way? That's quarter of the way. I'm bad at math. Forgive me. But I bring it up because through a quarter of the season, they're taking care of the football. Illinois, that is what they do best, force you into mistakes. Well, if you're at home, if you take care of the football, you should be okay. You're going to slow down the run game. And when you look at Illinois, the win against Central Michigan, they really struggled to move the football. And how about this? The Kansas game, right? Everybody thinks about the Kansas game, this great win. Well, first of all, Kansas lost at UNLV a few days ago. So Kansas is now 1-2. I'm not saying we should just dismiss and pretend like the Kansas game means nothing, but Kansas is 1-2. And in that Kansas game, Illinois was outgained total yards. They actually, the Kansas had more first downs. Kansas averaged like 6 yards per carry, but Kansas turned the football over 4 times. I don't think Nebraska is going to do that. Nebraska is taking care of the football through 3 games. I believe they're going to do it again, and I believe they win convincingly. So my pick and my best bet in this game, it is Nebraska -8.5. I know the number feels like a lot. I know it's at home. And I know, by the way, they haven't really been challenged. I think they probably haven't been challenged because they're just better than people think. And I'm telling you, I know this sounds crazy. I don't think in a world where, 12 teams are going to make the playoff and probably 3 or 4 from the Big Ten, that this isn't a fringe playoff contender. I know we're putting the cart before the horse. I know I'm not trying to go too crazy here, but you look at the schedule, no Michigan, no Oregon, no Penn State. Penn State's struggling. All of a sudden, you do have Ohio State. You do have USC. You go 10-2, though, you're going to be in the conversation. Now, Indiana's playing better than people expected under Kurt Cignetti, so I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here. I just think Nebraska's a really good team. And I think they were probably better last year than we realized. They just kept turning the ball over. I like them to win. I like them to cover. Give me Nebraska in a dominant home victory. By the way, after 4 straight home games start the season, they will go on the road next week. But we talked about it in the preseason. They win today. They win this weekend. They win on Friday. That's 4-0. Then at Purdue, picked to finish 18th out of 18 Big Ten teams. You can win that one. And then, of course, Indiana and Rutgers at home. There's a very realistic chance, that you start 7-0 going into that Ohio State game.